Christ is risen, indeed he is risen. Dear friends, let me tell you a secret. I know Pastor Jim is not listening. Do you know why the Gospel of Matthew was assigned to me as opposed to any other Gospel? There's a reason. It's the only one that speaks directly to Angelinos and to the Finns. Angelinos, because there was a great earthquake. Finns, people of Finland, there's a mention of snow. The angels' clothes were white as snow. The Easter morning story begins strangely, even ominously. No fanfare, no hallelujahs, no parades, no celebration, not even daylight. It says early in the morning at dawn, it's dark. And the Greek text says literally, light was slowly growing. Why? Because the resurrection is such a miracle that is totally new, totally unexpected, totally beyond our imagination. It took time for the first witnesses to even begin to realize what it might mean. It took time. Like the blind man in the Gospel of Mark, who regained his sight slowly, incrementally. Furthermore, the witnesses of the first resurrection morning were odd. Two women. At the time, the status of women with pregnancy was very low. Almost not fully human person apart from the husband or somebody else. And did you know, women were not even approved as witnesses in the court. And here they are witnessing the biggest miracle in the history of the church. And think about who those two women were. One of them is anonymous Mary. We don't know who the Mary was. There are like a zillion of Marys at the time. And I don't think she was mother of Jesus. It would have been mentioned. But the other one we know. She is Mary Magdalene. Mary of Magdala, a small city nearby, 5 kilometers from where everything happened. We know her from other Gospels, but it's not a good report. She was cured of demonic possession, you would say today. And perhaps she was the sinful woman, perhaps prostitute of Luke 7. She was no saint, and she is the only one who is present in all 4 Gospels on the resurrection morning. Like the Gospel of John, she's the only one. She is present at the cross, at the burial, and at the resurrection. No wonder, or it is any wonder, she was named in medieval times as the apostle to the apostles. Apostle to the apostles. And as early as 2016, Pope Francis dedicated a full Sunday in a very busy Roman Catholic church's liturgical calendar to Mary of Magdala. But there's also an irony and juxtaposition between the two women, the witnesses, and the guards, the military power. Following the earthquake and the appearance of the angel, the text says, the guards were shaking and became like dead men. But the women, they were standing still. They were standing their ground. How ironic. These guards, were guarding a dead man, Jesus. And after some shaking, they themselves looked like dead men. Sense of humor here. And the creature shaking, both earthquake and the shaking of these guards is the same, seismos. There's a lot of earthquake going on and shaking on the Easter morning. But Matthew reminds us in the previous chapter that even at the death of the time of Jesus, there was also an earthquake. The women who didn't look like dead men, they received a word of encouragement from the angel. And guess, and you remember what it was, do not be afraid. Literally, stop being afraid or stop fearing. But no word of encouragement to the guards who were still shaking. How often the word "do not be afraid" appears in the Bible? I haven't counted, but many times. Because we, in 2026, Easter people, we need to hear over and over and over again, do not be afraid. Particularly when we face death, when we face loss, when we face something totally extraordinary which we can't control in our lives. And finally, on this Easter morning day, or Easter morning, there was also lightning. It began in darkness, then dawn, growing, the light slowly growing, and finally there was not only daylight but lightning at the appearance of the angels. The women also, they received a mission, a message to convey and to deliver. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead, and indeed he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. Go quickly, the angel said. Why? There's hurry. Some good and healthy hurry for us to spread the good news that not all is lost. Death is overcome. There's hope. There's new dawn, new day, new lightning. When Jesus was born, the shepherds, as the text says in Luke, they went in haste to share the news with others. But not also what the text says. The women, they left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy. Fear and great joy. How can you be both fearful and joyful at the same time? You can. We know it from our own experience. When something extraordinary happens, totally unexpected, we are afraid and kind of fascinated. In 1917, a very famous German scholar, Rudolf Otto, wrote a little book, powerful book, by the title in English, The Idea of Holy. The whole book is about how we human beings encounter God, or the holy, or the one who is transcendent, somebody who is beyond us. Otto says, it's an experience of, listen to me, terrifying mystery and irresistible fascination. Terrifying mystery and irresistible fascination. That's what great joy and fear at the same time is. And then, suddenly, the text says, suddenly, Jesus met 10 and said, greetings. The Greek term kaidein, of course, means greeting, otherwise it would not have been translated, so it means basically rejoice, be glad. The women went out with great joy, and Jesus said, yes, be joyful. What else did he say to the women? Do not be afraid. Think about it. The women were not in such a bad place when they went out with fear and great joy, because Jesus said, let's all rejoice and stop fearing. There's no more any reason to fear, except the fear itself, as we know from the famous saying. And there's an important detail in the message to be delivered to the disciples. There's one place named Galilee. Here, angel said to the women, go quickly. Indeed, Jesus is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. And Jesus himself said, tell my brothers and sisters to go to Galilee. There they will see me. What is it about Galilee? It's the northern part of Israel. Why is it underlined in Matthew? That is their homestead. That is their home. Everything in their lives started in Galilee, not in Jerusalem, the capital. Their own lives as a former fishermen, their own boats lived there, their calling to follow Jesus, all of Jesus' teachings, miracles, healings, deliverance, in the Sermon on the Mount, Luke calls them on the plain, happened there. And in the Great Commission, go to all the world on a hill in Galilee. So the witnesses and disciples were invited to go back home to share the news. But think about that. We are still on the resurrection morning. We are in Jerusalem. From Jerusalem south up to Galilee north, about say 80-90 miles, depending on where in Galilee. 30 to 40 hours of walk. It's long enough, my brothers and sisters. It's time long enough to think about what is this yet another disappointment? We had one like never before, the cross. Everything was gone. He was gone. We were gone. Everything was lost. And now we've suddenly seen him, and now we start walking. 80, 90 long walk, and it's not a freeway down the hill, across the plains, through a valley. Journey home is sometimes long and arduous. It's easy to go away, come back home, not easy. But similarly, we, my brothers and sisters, this Easter we are invited to go quickly to our homestead and proclaim the good news. He is not dead, he is risen. We are called to serve, to love, to care, to seek for justice in the newness of the resurrection life. But there's one thing. Before we are sent to our Galilee, we need to pause and visit the women, visit with the women to see to take a look at the empty tomb. In Greek, the original language of the New Testament, the number of words can be translated see, look, or somewhat. This is an interesting term here. Theory, which we get the term theory, like a scientific theory. And there's an interesting backstory here. In ancient times, in sports games, say even in Olympics, there were 3 types of people present. Of course, the athletes, they competed for prize. The audience who were cheering the athletes to get the prize. Who else? The third group, those who watched, theoretically, not who is winning the prize. They watched all the athletes and the audience asking theoretical questions, such as, what is this all about? What is really happening here? What is the meaning of all of this? Does this make sense? That's the task of philosophers. And we need to do some theorizing before we are sent back home, this long journey to share the good news. So let us pause and look at the empty tomb I will conclude with a brief statement, a wonderful statement from the Saint Chrysostom, who is the master preacher from the 4th century. He was called Golden Mouth, because he was a great preacher, Archbishop of Constantinople. In his Easter sermon he says, "O death, where is your sting? O hell, where is your victory? Christ is risen and you are overthrown. Christ is risen and the demons are fallen. Christ is risen and the angels rejoice. Christ is risen and life reigns. Christ is risen and not one death remains in the grave. For Christ, being risen from the dead, became the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. To him be glory and dominion unto ages of ages. Christ is risen. Amen."
Amen.